Just to show you some of the cool versatility, like I told you earlier, I'm using another Max ECU to actually simulate the trigger pattern stuff for the crank and the cam. Under output config, I'm on a different computer now here, but you'll see that I've got two of my 12-volt outputs set up as a trigger pattern generator, and then the cam that goes along with it. And then under outputs, once you've turned those on, this will show up. And then you go to trigger pattern generator, it's enabled. Goes from 0 to 12,000 RPM with this slider. You can even set it up to look at an analog sensor to do that as well. So I could wire in like a resistor pot. 24-2 trigger pattern, which is nice because that's what it is for the Busa. And then you can do normal or invert those signals. And then, you know, as I turn this thing on, now you'll actually see, oh, your ECU is actually running right now. And you can see the tack working. You can see that the LCD is pissed off because we're not connected to a Suzuki ECU, and you'll also notice that the coolant gauge and the gear position sensor will not work, and that's just the way that is, unless you have a Suzuki ECU connected to it. Couple other things I'll show you real quick. Again, this is all kind of crazy looking, but all the different wires I got hooked up down here. You know, this obviously is going to go where the stock ECU goes. This relay all the way down here is going to go up in front of that between the ECU and your battery. You've got a 12-volt and a ground lead to hook up, and there's an inline 15-amp fuse here, and that's basically just taking the normal 12-volt ignition power that we get from this connector, triggering a relay, and then getting it directly from the battery, because when you go to start the bike, the starter solenoid consumes a few amps, and it actually pulls the voltage down on that wire a couple of volts. This will help you with starting and stuff, having this relay set up here. Also, and you almost can't see it here, but get your O2 sensor. I don't have that plugged in right now because it heats it once you plug it in, and I don't want to get it all hot. Here's your 4-channel igniter. This is going to get mounted, you know, somewhere in the tail section, probably behind the ECU. There is a ground wire for this that needs to be hooked up to the head, so it's a head ground. Do not hook this to the battery. You want to hook this to somewhere on the block or on the head. And that basically, when you've got your coil signals coming out of the Max Race, they're just a 5-volt signal, and you really need a ground signal. So you've got 5-volt signals coming in and a ground, and then you have basically ground signals leaving, going back into the factory harness, back up to these connectors. You got 12-volt on one side, and now you're switched ground, and that's what will fire your coils.